Okay guys, Carr coming at you live from New York City's reservoir near the Upper West Side. This is actually the Upper East Side that we're looking at where I live now. This is the downtown area, and over here is the Upper West Side where I used to live. And here's the reservoir, and it's a jogging path as well. You can see the beautiful fountain in the middle almost. And then everybody's jogging around and getting their exercise. So we're going to do a 2013 US Open wrap right now. I can sum up the US Open with 3 words: ironic, baffling, and happy. What was ironic? Well, that we saw 3 weeks of incredible tennis, upsets, controversy, bizarre behaviors. We saw just about everything, but in the end, it was the 2 favorites and the 2 fittest players coming into the tournament. Serena Williams and Rafa Nadal, and the 2 players that are having the best year, and the 2 of the greatest of all time. They won. There was nothing surprising about that. What is a little bit surprising about, and by the way, we're just taking a look at the pile of cinder and ash and crushed stone and whatever they use for the paths here. You would see this on the European clay courts, but it would be orange crushed brick. But what really surprised me the most was with Nadal, not obviously his great play or anything, but how fit he is this year. Now, he did have a lot of time off after Wimbledon because he got knocked off, and a lot of the top pros went deep into Wimbledon, so they had more of a letdown coming off of that. That might have had a lot to do, but still, he went through Montreal, Cincinnati, and then had a week off, and then blasted through the 2 weeks of the U.S. Open. His draw was not that hard at the U.S. Open, so that's another factor. So the long time off from Wimbledon, being hungry after that first round loss at Wimbledon, and then the not super hard draw at the U.S. Open, but still, I'm amazed that he blasted away on hard courts and showed no signs, not one sign of physical issues. 100% fit, unless there's something we don't know. Much fitter than any other player on tour, including the women's tour. So, we'll find out and see how it all comes out after. But his great play didn't surprise me. He's been playing like that all year. What's also I thought might have happened was the Giants. I thought the Giants might make an impact this year with the lively balls, but to be honest, it just wasn't quick enough. There was too much wind, there was a lot of humidity, then it was cool and windy, and it wasn't quite fast enough. But the thing is, today is a very hot day. Today's in the 90s. They didn't have this once during the US Open, a day like today. So you would say, well, that would benefit the Giants, right? The ball would be flying, and it's true. There might be 40 or 50 aces for like Raonic or Isner. But then the question is their fitness, their conditioning. And that's always the problem with the Giants, is their conditioning. So the courts are still too slow. Even in Cincinnati with the fast air, Isner couldn't get it through the court because they slowed the court up a little bit this year. It made it more gritty, and the ball was bouncing high. So Nadal could get to a lot of those shots. So as long as the courts are slow, the balls are bigger, even if they're lively, it's going to be hard for the Giants. They're going to need just the perfect conditions. Like today, Isner, first of all, they're going to need an easy draw in the slam. And then like today, Isner would have died in the heat today. But if he had played at night, he would have had a lot of aces and done great because it would still be hot. But then how would he have been the next round? So the bottom line is, with these kind of courts that we use today, it's always going to be the road runners for now. And if they have added power on top of it, like Djokovic, Nadal, even better. So that's the irony for me. Baffling. Well, the baffling is the lack of understanding by the professionals still on how the balls are and how the surfaces are, and not even using the weather to their advantage. And almost acting like they don't even know what the weather is going to be, though they can look at forecasts up to the second. Serena actually said she was struggling with her feet in the wind. Had she chopped her feet more, and she did in the last set, and was more careful and more accurate and stopped worrying about her power in the big serves, she would have done better. Well, that's true. But why in God's name didn't she know this? I mean, it had been windy for a whole week at least. You look at the forecast, it was going to be windy again. This is something in a game plan, and I'm not any coach, so I'm not going to pretend to know this, but you put in the game plan maybe, hey, don't worry about first serve percentage. That's not the point here. It's going to be windy. It's going to be tough. You want to chop your feet. You want to play some defense because she can play great defense, as she showed against Sloane Stephens, and get the balls in the court like she did in the third set. But this could have been a game plan that she came out with. By the way, we are now at the Central Park tennis courts. This is a hard, true surface. Crushed shell, green stone. A little bit different than the European clay, a little harder, a little faster. interesting mix, but it works really well in moist conditions like we get up here. We move over to here. These are the hard courts, and they are DecoTurf. The same brand as the US Open, but believe me, they're not the same type of court. Not as many layers of paint and a completely different sanding, different silica mix. Obviously, these are more for normal public courts. They're not going to put the kind of money they're going to put into Arthur Ashe Stadium, which probably has about 15 layers of paint at this point. I'm exaggerating, but Arthur Ashe is a whole nother ballgame. Anyway, so yeah, I was shocked to hear Serena almost act like she wasn't ready for the wind. Yes, it was a little more windy than previously in the week, but still, that's got to be in the game plan. And to be honest, I was a little surprised that I didn't see more. First of all, no one even mentioned the ball being bigger than last year or more lively, which it definitely was. And the other thing is, I'm watching the Djokovic-Nadal match, and Novak's just trying to power it up against Nadal, which he's done before, and he has the matchup edge because Nadal can't hurt him on the backhand and all that. But unless you're 100% fit, you cannot go head-to-head against Nadal, or at least in the 90%. You've got to be really fit to punch Nadal, because he's going to punch back. Novak almost did it. He almost took control because of the matchup edge. He was really making Nadal nervous at one point. As Nadal gets nervous, Djokovic's the worst matchup for Nadal. But then he didn't. But when he punched, Nadal punched back. Nadal got a second wind. He got a little tired. Then he punched back, and Djokovic had nothing. He had nothing to punch back with. You've got to admit to yourself, you've got to be honest and say, hey, look, this is where my fitness level is right now. Then the other question is, what can I do? Is the only option today, because of the rackets, is the only option to hit with power and run like a maniac? Great power, great athleticism. The fans love it. The ex-tennis players love it. Everybody loves it. But is that the only solution? Because I can tell you this, tennis was not created in this way. In the 1800s, it was actually played with skirts, pants, long pants, and cocktails. Now, I'm not saying that we're going to go back to that, but even back in Rod Laver's day, there was a lot more, variety. Now, a lot of people will say, and the announcers are saying, what great variety by Djokovic Nadal. Well, certainly, because they're incredible athletes. But it's a forced variety. It is not a planned variety. This is due to they're trying to finish the point. They're trying to figure out how to get it past each other, or how to win the point against each other, who are both great athletes and great fighters. So they're forced to add some variety. They're forced to do some drop shots, come to the net, find some angles. But this is all forced. This is not in the game plan. The game plan is hit hard, run everything down, fight like a dog. And that's the game plan. So it ends up being who's the most fit wins, period. It's almost like a football game. So my bottom line is, look, if that's the tennis today, that's fine. But are there other things that can be done? And if you understand the surface and the types of balls they were using this year, to be honest, the balls were lively, so and they're big, so they lended towards baseline power. So I'm not sure what to say on that one. We see some future Nadals right here playing around in the thing. But anyways, but you got to understand this DecoTurf is very quick on top. It slides through very quick. There was one point where Novak actually was just getting the ball back. It was a Nadal serve, and he just whipped a forehand slice over the net just to get the ball back to Nadal. And that ball skidded through the court like it was grass. I was amazed. I'm like, now look, imagine using that forehand slice. Imagine getting slices through the court or hitting really flat and lower. That backhand down the line, get it real flat. Now it's a risky shot, but you're playing Nadal. It's got to be risky. It's understandable. But you don't have to only rely on power and speed. That's not, and if you're not 100% fit, you can't do that against Nadal. So I'm not a coach. I'm not going to say what the game plan should have been. There's a million game plans you can come up with. But I'm just telling you, understand the conditions. Understand the wind, the humidity. What's the conditions today? For Christ's sake, understand the air pressure. I can tell you some things, what happens with the different air pressures, but that's a little heavy. But let's just go on to, understand how the ball might be playing different this year. It's a different type of ball. I showed that on my other videos. It was larger and it was livelier. And then lastly, understand the surface you're playing on. The DecoTurf at the US Open is unlike any other surface you'll see in the world. And you have to understand that it's very quick on top if you play it that way, if you spin it hard. And when you hit big shots, you have to spin it to keep it in the court. And when you spin it like that, it grabs the hard, heavy silica underneath. But if you hit light shots, take some pace off, some slices and stuff on top, it will skid through. I guarantee it. You can see it in between points when players are just hitting the ball back to each other. You can see it skid, and they won't pick this up. Just imagine if Djokovic did some of those skidding shots down the lines and stuff and had Nadal frustrated. Who knows what would have happened? So anyways, that's what I'm baffled about. It still seems like I'm baffled that Serena seems shocked by the wind a little bit. I'm baffled that we don't see more planned variety in the game plans. And again, it could be just that everybody hits so hard and runs so hard, and the rackets just, everybody's just feeling one way to play. That's it. There's only one way. But there isn't. This game of tennis has incredible variety. It's inherent in the sport. So let's look for it. And you need to understand the technology that's going on. The technology is way beyond what it's ever been before, and this needs to be understood. We're looking at Deco turf courts right here, but they're not the same as US Open, I can guarantee you. All right, lastly, I learned something every Grand Slam, and this Grand Slam I learned about happy. A happy tennis player is a great tennis player and can overcome a lot. In fact, if Novak was feeling his very best, he might have been happy enough to overcome. Serena was pretty happy heading into that final. I think Sloane Stephens really got her into great fitness because, or great form, because she really had to work against Sloane. Sloane was dictating a lot of points. Serena came out of that match fantastic, so that was great for her. Some of the doubles, Pace Stepanek, who struggled. Stepanek had back surgery, neck surgery. Pace was struggling early in the year. And boy, did they catch fire, and they were happy, and they beat a great Bryan's team. Wawrinka, Panetta, I saw Panetta warming up with her coach at the qualifying, practicing, and she looked the fittest I've seen her in years. I should have known better. I should have known that she was going to have a bigger tournament than I gave her. Wawrinka had some back troubles coming into the U.S. Open. He still had fitness issues during the U.S. Open. He overcame it. He was happy. He was on fire. He was the best mentally I've ever seen him. Gasquet had a letdown after Wimbledon. He looked real sluggish in the hard court season. But he came into the U.S. Open. He suddenly felt great. And he caught fire. So checking this out, another one, the doubles team, the women's doubles, Lavachva and Radeka. They've had a terrible year. They've lost to Ashley Barty and Delacqua all year long. They lost to them at the Australian Open, lost to them again later. They've been losing all year. Radeka's been struggling with fitness. Lavachva's been up and down. Suddenly, Lavachva had wraps on her knees, suddenly didn't have them. They beat the Williams sisters. They're happy as a kite, flying high as a kite. And then they beat Barty Delacqua for the first time all year. I thought for sure Barty Delacqua would take that, but they suddenly got happy and in form in the middle of the tournament. So it's hard to predict this stuff. Another one, the wheelchairs. We can take this to wheelchairs. Lucas Siddle. He's never been in the top 5. Now he just won the quad wheelchairs final, the U.S. Open, the first African ever to win in a U.S. Open final. Again, he's been on fire, and it carried him through. Lapthorne's had a tough year physically. Wagner's getting older. Siddle is a very happy camper, and he's the coolest looking wheelchair player I've ever seen. He can make this sport more famous. He needs to stay. I hope he stays fit and stays up on top. And another one, Van Koot overtook number 1 again, and she got a second win this second part of the season. She's a happy camper. Another one, Kunieda does not look so happy. He looks a little out of shape, and Houdet finally got him. It's the number 2, beat the number 1. So we saw signs of this everywhere. Tornado Black. She's never done much in the juniors, and bam, next thing you know, she's in the U.S. Open final, and she almost beat the experienced Konju. Amazing. So, and she was just on fire, and she was just happy. So, happy tennis player equals great tennis. Korek, the junior, is another one. His first Grand Slam. He finally broke through. So, a lot of that was the U.S. Open, the Deco turf. It fits his game very well. But anyways, so learned something. We had irony, baffling that the players don't understand more about the surfaces and balls, in my opinion, and the climates. And then happy equals a great tennis players and a great tennis tournament, which we had. And now it's on the Davis Cup, it's on to the Asian Tour, it's on to the season final championships. It never ends here in the tennis world. Great tournament, 2013 U.S. Open.